Joining me now is Delaware Democratic Senator Chris Coons. Senator Coons, honestly, there's no other way to describe this tit for tat other than that. And frankly, a lot of people in this country are going, no matter which side they believe in or whatever, they're just going, are you kidding me?
That's right, Chuck. This is a depressing additional step farther down in what is a interpersonal stare down, a spat between the Speaker of the House and the President, and in the best interests of our entire country, our security, our prosperity, our health. My plea to President Trump would be reopen the government. If you want to make progress in negotiating investment in border security, reopen the government, and I think this could be resolved very quickly. Every Democrat wants to invest in border security. We'd already appropriated $1.3 billion in border security investments that hasn't been fully spent yet. I think this has gone beyond an interpersonal conflict and is now really beginning to affect the health and safety of millions of Americans.
I want to play for you something that your colleague Dick Durbin said to Hallie Jackson this morning, because I'm curious your reaction to it. It was sort of his idea to try to end this stalemate. Take a listen.
Somebody's going to have to blink first. Will it be Democrats? How do you get out of this?
Let's blink at the same time. Let the president open the government. We sit down instantly to start negotiating and into this border security crisis. But the government has to open.
Senator, I feel like you and Lindsey Graham actually tried to coordinate the blink at the same time strategy, if you will. Is that a nowhere to go? I mean, did Lindsey Graham basically get a no from the president on that idea?
I'll let Senator Graham speak for himself. I think that there's a good group of Republicans and Democrats who would really like to see the government reopened and who believe that we could, in very short order, come to an understanding that would invest more in border security and make progress. But, frankly, Chuck, I'll remind you how we got into this whole mess in the first place was that every senator, Democrat and Republican, voted unanimously near the end of last year for an appropriations package that included much of the request of the administration. The president changed his mind 36 hours later and drove us into a shutdown. He's the first president to shut down his own government. And I don't think it's too much for all of us to be asking for the government to be reopened and then for us to immediately move towards serious negotiations. I don't think it would take that long to resolve this issue.
You are frequently involved in bipartisan talks, bipartisan gangs, whatever you want to describe it these days. I have noticed not many Republicans are publicly reaching back with you. We don't see it as much. Describe to me the struggles you're having of getting Senate Republicans to go public with your attempts to be bipartisan here.
I think it's best for folks who are interested in sending a strong message about reopening the government to let them continue working in their caucus. I do think there are folks of goodwill. I think there are lots of senators who would like us to be resolving this issue, but who agree that until the government's open, we can't take that role. It's really not appropriate for the Senate to have a hearing on different proposals, different investments, and what might command a bipartisan vote with the government closed. But I do think we could move to that really very quickly. I understand the president is refusing to relent and support any movement in that direction until he has a deal that he will embrace. This has turned into sort of a chicken and an egg staring contest. I'll agree with what Senator Durbin said. We could do it almost simultaneously, meaning, Mr. President, reopen the government. We could move to negotiations that day.
I have to say, from my perspective, it looks like the longer this goes on, the harder it is to compromise. And the reason I say that, it seems like once you've decided to dig in and you've accepted some level of political pain, then suddenly your tolerance grows. There's never a point of no return, but it feels like we're about to hit another monumental hill here that we're going to go over and not get back again.
Well, the thing I keep bringing myself back to is the way this is impacting 40,000 federal law enforcement officers who've been out there now serving without pay for several weeks. The way this is impacting farmers all over the country who aren't getting the payments they were promised to deal with the impact, say, on soybean farmers in particular, from the tariff fight with China, the security and safety impacts on federal prisons where you've got corrections officers working without pay, food safety inspections, aviation issues from TSA folks not showing up for work because they haven't been paid in weeks. This is really having an impact on our economy, on our security, on our prosperity. I frankly think it's time for the president to reopen the government and hand this challenge to the Senate, where there are grown-ups who I think could resolve this very quickly.
Do you support the president's efforts? The administration here seems to be trying to find ways to jerry-rig the opening of an agency here, an agency there. The State Department put out a memo today that said all direct State Department hires and workers have to come back to work, and they have found a way to at least pay them for the next paycheck. Is that legal? I mean, when Congress appropriates funds, what is the State Department doing here? You're on foreign relations. I imagine you have an idea here. How are they paying for these people?
I'm also on appropriations, and it's Senator Graham who's the chairman of the appropriations subcommittee that funds the State Department. I'm on that subcommittee, and I have some real concerns about ways that different agencies and departments are kind of cutting corners and moving money around. Frankly, Chuck, this sets a terrible precedent. If we end up in a place where the message is every time the president gets into some profound disagreement with Congress over spending priorities, he shuts the government down, but then keeps the folks he needs to do particular priorities coming back in. That basically violates our constitutional structure. Congress has the power of the purse. We have to be able to come to an agreement. I have a record, as do all Democrats, of voting to invest in border security, not to build a concrete wall across the whole border, but to invest in border security.
To reiterate, you believe what they're doing at the State Department is unconstitutional?
I didn't say that, but I have real concerns about ways that several departments are now trying to work around this. I don't know specifically what authority the State Department is using to bring folks back.
We don't either, and they haven't told us. We keep asking.
That's right. I've got real concerns.
Senator Chris Coons, Democrat from Delaware, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your views, and I can feel your frustration through the TV.
It's deep.
Thanks very much. Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Beat the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.